We all have that childhood favorite that has stuck with us throughout the years. Something that has left such a lasting effect that it remains prevalent well into adulthood. For me, that's Batman the Animated Series. Since I've started this channel, I've been downright obsessed with covering the ugly ducklings of media. They may not be perfect, but they sure as hell cannot be as bad as people say that they are. All except for I've Got Batman in my basement. That's just bad. That's why today I want to talk about... It tells the story of the enslavement of seemingly orphaned children who rob the city streets only to retreat to the sewers to bring their earnings to their physically and psychologically abusive capture, the Sewer King. I know this show got dark sometimes, but come on man, that's fucked up. The episode opens with two kids playing chicken on top of a speeding train in Gotham. Batman swoops in and saves one of the kids when they're unable to get free in time as they're about to hit the side of a tunnel. Well, forget everything about what you just saw. It literally serves no purpose to the story other than to be a PSA to not play with actual trains. An argument to be made here is that it establishes that Batman cares for children? Wow, scorching hot take here everybody, but I think Batman cares about people. The episode's production was plagued with issues that took up much of director Frank Parr's time, which Parr clearly wasn't happy about.
It was my first episode as a director, and there are still things in it that I cringe at. Usually when we get an episode, we get to use a lot of discretion and change things. I wish I had been able to spend more time on that script. Another problem at the time was that we had storyboard people who made things difficult. I found myself going back 2 or 3 times to fix scenes. They didn't quite understand we were shooting for a higher standard, so there was always a constant drain on my time. That whole opening sequence of the kids playing chicken with the train should have been cut. That was what we had to contend with at the beginning of the season. We had these little public service announcements worked into the scripts, a concept we nixed real quick.
I managed to get a hold of one of the original storyboards for the episode, courtesy of Maddie Washburn from the Watchtower database. Interestingly, this set of storyboards omits the train sequence altogether. For the majority of the slides, we see the episode play out almost exactly as it aired. Part of the issue with the storyboards is that they reflected a style of illustration closer to that of something like Akira than the Fleischer-inspired style that Tim and company were setting out to achieve. Commenting on the look of the episode, Tim had this to say.
It's Studio Junyo's weakest episode. We almost didn't use them after that. It was the first one that came back that really looked totally unlike our show. It was very Japanese.
Following this out-of-place cold open, we are introduced to the episode's namesake, the Underdwellers. A child dressed in a bright green hooded cloak dashes from the alleyway, stealing a pedestrian's purse before vanishing again. There's something that feels so dissimilar to the rest of the show in hindsight more than 30 years later. The manner in which Batman leaps into action, sliding down a fire escape ladder, and bouncing on top of cars, feels more in line with something we'd see in Super Friends rather than BTAS, but I can't help but enjoy it. I know this dark tone that I've spent most of the video talking about is part of the reason that this show is lauded as much as it is, but I think that we all too often forget that this is a show originally made for kids. Batman the Animated Series was never for mature audiences, but it existed in a space where it was a mature form of telling a story that was appropriate for children. This is why standards and practices had a field day with this episode. But more on that later. Adding in these quirky moments really balances this episode in ways that, in my opinion, save this from becoming totally inappropriate for kids. Speaking of children, we're introduced to the little boy nicknamed Frog. We see children in rags, laboring over various chores deep in the sewers. All the while, there's an eerie accompaniment provided by composers Stuart Balcombe and Lars Clutterham. We really get the sense that these kids look out for one another, and that they must never speak. This decision to have the Sewer King keep the children quiet allows for the storytellers to give us everything we need to know through excellent visual storytelling. And, of course, Balcombe and Clutterham's equally incredible score. When they are all called by the ringing bell, the tone shifts back to this laborious march both audibly and visually. We really get the sense of feeling tired and drained as we see the children march into a single file line. The Sewer King has always stood out to me amongst the roster of villains seen in the animated series. It wasn't until this rewatch that I feel like I fully understood how evil his character really was. On paper, he has a lot of the similar qualities of a normal Batman villain. Earlier on in the episode, Batman deduces that the Underdwellers are located in the theater district. The whole interaction between Bruce and Alfred is a back and forth about theatrics. Looking to the Sewer King, the way he presents himself is incredibly dramatic. Everything from the robes to the voice down to the eye patch is very Shakespearean in nature. Not to mention that he's got crocodile pets. It's pretty dramatic, but it's also pretty cool. The way that he draws the children in, commanding a presence and total allegiance to his monologues, to his performance. Because that's what it is. It's a performance. The performance of a failed actor cast down into the sewers, rejected by society. As he marches back and forth in front of the children, he's convincing himself and them that they too are unloved and rejected by the surface, which is why they must obey him.
It is I who care for you. I who provide for you.
But we instantly see him for what he is. He's an unhinged charlatan. His speech is repetitive and condescending. It's demonstrative of his own insecurities. He needs control. He needs to be the center of attention. He wants the praise and riches, the pretties of the outside world that he's been rejected of.
Lots and lots of pretties for your king.
The Sewer King is a monster. The rest of the episode sees Batman rescue Frog and take him back to the Batcave so that he can learn more about what's going on. It's here where we retreat from the horrors of the sewer and see a little boy who, while unmannered, is enjoying the life of an affluent child. He races around Wayne Manor, sledding down the stairs, fighting Alfred tooth and nail to take a bath, and hawking the silverware. I mean, what a little goofball, he's having the time of his life. This may seem like we're straying from the point of the episode, but it's entirely the opposite. If anything, it helps demonstrate the crime that has been committed to this boy, to these children. Like Batman, they've been robbed of their innocence.
BS&P took a lot out of the show. Originally, the kids were to be victimized by the Sewer King, but he wasn't allowed to be mean or torturous to any of them. The impact is watered down. If we were doing it today, we probably would have decided not to do the show.
While I disagree that the Sewer King isn't mean or torturous, I mean, he stuck a kid who he acclimated to a severe lack of light in a room full of light as a punishment for exclaiming out loud when he hurt himself farming in his sewer dungeon. I can only imagine what was cut from this script. When Frog and Batman return to the sewers to stop the Sewer King, we see Batman's direct reaction to the scene unfolding before him. He's angry, and why shouldn't he be? They've all been robbed of their innocence. It's here where that dumb PSA from the beginning of the episode kind of ironically works. I've always seen Batman as wanting to stop the murder of his parents in some small way. His mission is to ensure that no 8-year-old ever goes through what he experienced. As he captures evidence on camera, we're also shown these photos. We've seen this display before, but it's different now. Now we see it in black and white. This could be a child that you know. This could be a child that you were. There's no glimmer of warmth in the frame whatsoever. They're represented as crime scene photos. As we head into the final confrontation, we switch again to a somewhat goofy affair, with Batman finally being pitted against the Sewer King's crocodiles. This episode is constantly shifting tones and themes. In some ways, it feels stilted. In others, it adds moments of much needed levity. It's kind of interesting to see how Batman will deal with a foe that relies on minions that aren't people for him to punch. Holy fuck, is Batman about to suplex a crocodile? Batman and the Sewer King finally face off against one another over crocodile-infested waters below. I think it's important here to keep track of how increasingly infuriated Batman is becoming based on his interactions with the Sewer King. It drives him to the point where he actually threatens to kill the Sewer King.
I don't pass sentence. That's for the courts. But this time, I am sorely tempted to do the job myself.
Normally we see villains that are plotting revenge or robbing banks, but we rarely see ones that rob children of their innocence. But here's the thing, we never see Sewer King being locked up. In fact, we never see him in the show again. When I was younger, I felt that the episode wrapped up abruptly. As a viewer, I wanted to see the Sewer King's face as he's paraded to the cop car in front of the onlookers as the children finally stepped out into the light. But the idea that the man grasping, clawing for attention and validation isn't given that is satisfying in and of itself. It isn't about him. It's not even about Batman. It's about the children. Listen, it's not a perfect episode by any means. The script needs a ton of work.
Might this wee one be a leprechaun?
The animation is all over the place, but the themes are all great. I can see why this would stand out in your memory as being lesser than when compared to something like Heart of Ice or Clayface. It can be equal parts way too goofy and way too dark. I know the creators aren't massive fans of the episode, but how can you be if everyone tells you it's the worst episode you've done?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Admittedly, it's not their strongest. But does that mean that it deserves the groans of everyone around when it's mentioned? I mean, this isn't I've got Batman in my basement, okay? No, I will not let it go. The goal in any critique, in any analysis, is to challenge yourself, to look deeper, beyond the surface with a fonder, more empathetic view on the cast aside, and bring them proudly into the light. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. The Underdwellers was interesting to cover, but fun to dissect and learn about. I want to thank Maddie, James, and Ted from the Watchtower database for being instrumental in the behind-the-scenes research for this episode. Please go check them out, they're wonderful. Also, thanks to my friends Doug and Troy for playing the team behind the show. I'll be back again real soon with another video. In the meantime, you can go check out some of my other videos. And maybe consider giving this video a like and subscribing. Remember to stay safe and be good to one another. Until next time.